Hello friends, Jay the Silent Cartographer here in Wonder Draft today for day number 47 of Daily Map. I'm gonna have to download some new asset packs because I've realized we've probably done just about all we can with the default map assets that we've gotten with us. So we're gonna do a continent map today. I don't know why we're gonna do a continent map today, but I'm just in the mood. This looks like a likely candidate, and you'll be very proud to know that I took my own advice and I scheduled my entire day today. So I have all of these timetables written out as to when I'm going to be doing what. Fuck. Why does this not work? Valid shape my ass. Just let me place this where I said I wanted to place it. Thank you. But yeah, I planned my whole day. Down to the minute. And by down to the minute, I mean down to the approximate hour. Okay, so I don't understand why this is dropping not where the lasso tool says it's going to. That's very annoying. Maybe if I put it more to the side, it will... Oh, now it works. Okay. Or no, now it was up higher. See, that's so... Wonderdraft, can you please just work with me today, my friend? My longtime partner. Don't do this to me. Like right here, watch where the blue outline is. Hit enter. Okay, that's not bad. Okay, that's not bad. Let's go ahead and fix some of this stuff up. I'm going to drop the roughness down a little bit so we don't have to do as much work. Fill these little nubbins in. We can keep that. Maybe we're going to fill that in like that. And I think that looks pretty good. Let's do one of our classic full stain, low value, high saturation landmass outline. Make it a black coastline color. Make it like a light blue. Increase the FX distance. Decrease the outline blend. Change the coat line to maybe like 3-tiered. And then pull the distance back a little bit. And just like that, we have our coastline. This area up here looks a bit muddy. Why does it look a bit muddy? Because, because Wonderdraft has this fascination with making the landmass outline blend not go to actual 0. Which is very frustrating. Very, very frustrating, but we're not going to worry about that too much. We're just going to take the eraser tool and get rid of any offending bits and pieces. But yeah, so I'm back starting my animation class, and I was expecting this week in our animation class to be very easy. I was expecting, hey, it's the first week of a new term, which means we're just gonna get the assignment of say hi to everybody, like introduce yourself to the class, post your previous work, etc., which we do have. However, our teacher basically said, yeah, I know that that this is supposed to be your kind of off week, but what are animators if not animators? So go animate. He gave us all the challenge of doing a shot anyway, and so I'm going to do so. And so after I'm done with Daily Map, from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I am going to be working on animation stuff, and then from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I have some free time. Maybe I'll keep reading book that I picked up. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm not a huge fan of it so far. But a lot of people said it was like the writer's magnum opus, so it's very odd to me because the prose are, it's very hard to read. I might look up the title and talk about it in a future Daily Map episode, but. I might go back to reading that. I do want to finish it. I want to get through it, even if I'm not a huge fan of the book. I think it deserves to be finished, and it can teach me a lot. I think, and this is kind of a very, like, a little oddity of mine, is that I like reading things that are not necessarily great. And the reason I like reading things that are not necessarily great is because things that are not necessarily great have a lot to teach us. And so I'm hoping that in reading this not very great piece of literature that I can come to better understand how literature functions and why it doesn't work, because I think that that's a very important distinction to make. I think that you can learn more by figuring out why something doesn't work than you can by just only ever exposing yourself to stuff that you know that you'll like and that you'll enjoy. So for me, this book is missing for a lot of reasons, and I mean the first reason that I was really easily able to nail down was a use of adjectives. Like every single thing in the world um, is described with like 7 adjectives, which I'm not a huge fan of that writing style. And then the other was I mean, this happens all the time in modern fantasy. I wish it didn't. But like one of the first interactions I have with the main character of the book is that the main character looks at a girl and just like, "Wow, she's hot. I wonder what her boobs look like." Like literally written in the book is, "I looked at this girl and saw how beautiful she was, and then I wondered to myself what her boobs would look like." And to me, it's like you don't need to say that. Even if you like even if he finds the woman incredibly attractive, that sentence of like, "Oh, I wonder what her boobs looks like," doesn't add anything to the story. It's just fluff, and the fluff just kind of pulls me out of it. It just kind of pulls me out, and it says, like, this story is incredibly immature, and I'm not interested in finishing reading it, which is a shame because, I mean, again, this was lauded as this particular author's like big finish, their big book. So I'll be sure to actually have the I'll be sure to actually have the title of it next time I rant about it. But it was one of those things where it's just like, do you really need to say that? I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I like that stuff as much as the next guy, but nothing prevents me from taking your story serious faster than something like that. Because it's all about, like, to an extent, it's about maturity, and then the other thing is it's about expectation, right? And that just set my expectations very low for the rest of the series, and that's a shame because I was gonna say the plot so far has been interesting and gripping, but it really hasn't. There's been a lot of floundering. There's been a lot of setup, but the setup also involves a bunch of place names that are long, confusing, and kind of annoying to pronounce, and there are lots of them just dumped into your lap in the first chapters. And so here I am thinking like, God, I can't get attached to any of these characters because the second that I get attached to one of them, I get introduced to like 6 more of them whose names I have to remember. And yeah, you know, I'm actually thinking like this might make an interesting little circle here, like a little crater. And like that's really cool. And then the other book that I picked up recently was actually a book by a woman named Jenna Moreci, who's a booktuber here on YouTube. Runs the YouTube channel Jenna Moreci, which is focused on uh, just writing tips and writing advice, and I find it incredibly entertaining to watch Jenna Moreci. I enjoy her commentary, but the book has never been something that I really thought of picking up because it's from a genre and from the plot that she's explained it to her audience. It doesn't seem like something I would enjoy reading, but I did pick up the Savior's Champion just to why not to give it a read. There's a bunch of author tuber groups who have been putting out books recently, and since I watched them, I figured why not instead of supporting them on something like Patreon, why not go ahead and purchase one of their novels and give it a read. Because I know that Megalator just came out with the Cyborg Tinkerer, or that's coming out fairly soon. Another book that just is completely not in a genre that I have any interest in reading. And then the other thing is like I'm trying to find some area on BookTube that has a more masculine outlook and viewpoint because as I've been plugging away at Emberhold, the book that I'm working on, something that's come apparent is a lot of the booktube audience is female, and that's completely valid. But a lot of the interviews that these booktubers are having are with primarily young female editing and publishing staff, and a lot of their advice is targeted at genres of that I'm not particularly looking to write in, and dealing with much more modern themes than I think I'd be willing to put into a book, if that's a PC way of putting it. I mean, basically said they like that a lot of them would turn their nose up at books if they don't have enough diversity or if they don't have enough like LGBTQ plus interactions in them. And again, like I'm totally for all that stuff. I think that if you want to be yourself, you should be yourself to your best capacity, whatever that is for you. And I would never take that away from anybody. But I have a huge problem with somebody saying I'm not going to publish your book because there's not enough gay people in it. If I do my job right, you'll never know if one of my characters is gay or not. Because at the end of the day, whether you're gay or not doesn't matter because you're a person before that. And I think adding characters for gayness' sake or for diversity's sake takes away from what those people are, which is people, not just the statistic of whatever minority you're representing by doing that. Be that a black person, be that a gay person, a trans person, a foreign person in a country that is not their own, like whatever you want to do, it takes away from that person's struggle and their sense of individuality if the only reason that they're like that is because you need to fill a diversity quota. And so I find that practice disgusting. I would never send my book to a publisher who said that my characters need to be gayer, because I don't think that my characters have to be anything other than what they are. Just like people don't have to be anything but what they are. And also, as a heterosexual male who grew up in like an upper middle class white suburban family, I have a unique, probably not very unique, but I have an outlook on the world that doesn't involve a lot of hardship, that doesn't involve a lot of stuff like that. And so I'm not the person who can write those types of stories, you know? I'm not the person to champion the cause of discrimination against homosexuality or transgender or anything like that. And so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put it in my books. And to hear from industry professional editing staff in some of these interviews that's like, oh yeah, if you don't have enough diversity, I'm not even going to look at your book. That hurts, you know? That hurts because I think that their hearts are in the right place, right? They want more accessibility for people of color, for people of different backgrounds, but it alienates them so much. Like I mean, I was raised Jewish. I guess that's one thing I can say that I did do, is that I was raised Jewish. I had a bar mitzvah when I was 13. All that jazz happened, and if I were reading a book and it's like, oh, here comes the Jewish guy. You know he's Jewish because he's got long curly hair and he's got a big nose and he's got the last name is Bernstein or Schmidt or something like that. And you know he's a great accountant, but this one's not an accountant because he's an artist, because that's a not Jewish thing to do. Which I mean, of course, I'm just talking complete bullshit at this point. But the idea of like I wouldn't relate to that because I'm Jewish. I might relate to him because he's an artist, and then it'd be neat that he's Jewish, but like, don't build a character that's Jewish. Build a character that's interesting, and then make them Jewish. This Brandon Sanderson, again, I'm a huge Sanderson fanboy, so here we go, going back to Sanderson again. Is a devout Mormon. He is a very religious person. He goes to church every Sunday, or did before COVID. I am atheistic, raised Jewish. I do not believe in a god or a higher power, but I respect anybody's ability to worship that deity of their choice. It's interesting to read Sanderson's books because they all have to do with faith and the different faces of that faith. And so, for him, and he said this in a lot of different interviews, something that pains him a lot is how religion is portrayed as this evil thing. And so he wants to, in his books, and I think he succeeds in his book, as painting faith as something that's unambiguously good to have, but that it can also be problematic depending on the circumstances. So, like in Mistborn, Which huge Mistborn spoilers, by the way. So if you haven't read Brandon Sanderson's amazing Mistborn trilogy, go do it now. Um, like, please, for the love of God, go read Mistborn. It's genre-defining story. Um, all right, spoilers from this point forward. After the first book and Kelsier dies, he essentially becomes a deity. He becomes deified by the people as the survivor, and he lives on as this religious figure. And then in the Alloy of Law, Sazed, who later goes on to become Harmony, is a religious figure, and they didn't want that to happen. That's, to them, that was an unambiguously bad thing to happen. Well, Kelsier wanted it to happen, but Sazed never thought of himself as a god. He never wanted to be called God. And so, like, there are a lot of interesting religious motifs in Mistborn, which are great to see coming from somebody who, growing up Mormon, I'm talking Sanderson here, not myself, was exposed to a lot of the, and I mean, he also was he was a traveling priest. I forget what they're called. Missionary. They're called missionaries. He was a traveling missionary. I believe he went to Korea as a missionary. And so, to him, he probably grew up constantly being made fun of for his faith and for his religion. And so when he wrote books, he taps into that to bring the religions of his world to a whole new level that few authors could write from, because they're not as ingrained in religious philosophy as Brandon Sanderson is. And that's a great thing to do. And so that's a great example of, like, his mentality and his existence shaped those characters and those characters' ideals and enhanced them with religion in a way that religious people and not religious people can think about and understand the topic in a deeper and broader way. Since I am not religious, since I am not a transsexual, since I am not homosexual or bisexual, it would be much harder for me to include something like a gay character in one of my stories. Could I do it? Absolutely. But I'd much rather, in my own writing, just completely leave my sexuality ambiguous. I don't have any interest in in writing erotica. I don't find that medium fascinating or titillating or anything like that. So I don't think I would put a relationship like that in. I mean, certainly not in Emberhold. Maybe a romantic subplot could happen in Emberhold at some point, but it would have to make sense for the character. And I guess that's what it comes down to, is like, if two characters make sense for each other, then sure, that's a whole different characteristic. But I'm not gonna sacrifice who my characters are for who you want my characters to be. It's probably the best way to put it. And so yeah, it scares me a little bit to think and to hear about all these publishing houses and all these literary agents who are turning their nose up so vehemently at novelists who don't include the gay character, who don't include the trans character, who don't have enough black people, or who don't have enough diversity in their story. And so, yeah, it's one of those things, right? Where, and I'm also a huge proprietor. I believe it was Stan Lee who first said it. Who said, like, if you want the next great black superhero, don't turn a white superhero black. Make a new awesome black superhero. And I think that's 100% the way to look at it. Don't try to reinvent Iron Man as somebody, or I guess Iron Man's probably a bad example. I'm trying to think of like a synonymous, like Doctor House would be a good example, because Doctor House has just always been Doctor House. Don't try to make like a female version of Doctor House and retcon Doctor House. Instead, make another awesome quippy doctor that isn't Doctor House, but that has that same kind of attitude, and you'll probably get on a lot better. So yeah, it's something to think about, you know. But that rant aside, I think this is Daily Map done. I think 20 minutes is a respectable amount of time, and I really like how this turned out. I don't think this one needs symbols. I think this is one of the ones that you can do symbols on for yourself. Really quickly though, I do want to do a grid overlay for this one. So we're gonna go square grid. We're gonna shrink that down. We're gonna go color. We're gonna go teal. go something along these lines. We're going to drop the alpha down to around there. We're going to go water only because I just like the way that looks. It looks much more clean than everything covered. And we are going to go ahead and export, normal. And we're going to do this as day 47. We are then going to turn off the grid, and we're going to export day 47, no grid. Just in case you want it without the grid. Anyways, if you've weathered my rants so far, thank you so much for watching. If you would like to download this map for use in your own Final Fantasy games, fantasy, tabletop games, etc., for personal use, not professional use, you can download this exact map in the link in the description down below. It'll be an Imgur link. Super easy, will take you to this map. Both versions will be available through that. Also in the description will be a link to the August map album, which is all the maps that Daily Maps made in August, which is, I believe, a total of 50 images and over 30 days of maps. So yeah, go ahead and check that out if you need more maps to play with. But I've been Jay, the Silent Cartographer, and I will be back tomorrow for day number 48 of Daily Maps, approaching 50 very quickly. Thank you so much for watching, and have an amazing day.